Now, welcome back. Widespread illegal sand mining has led to a legal face-off between environmentalists and government. Environmentalists and community members have sued the state for failing to enforce environmental laws in the Wild Coast. They claim this lack of prosecution has led to rising violations, including illegal sand mining, destruction of indigenous forests, unauthorized roads in protected areas, and unplanned settlements in sensitive zones. Legal action has been taken in both the Bhisho and Gauteng High Courts. For more on the challenge, I'm joined now by conservation specialist, Dr. Div de Villiers. Dr. de Villiers, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I guess if you could briefly explain the environmental challenges, particularly posed by sand mining.
Yes, good evening, and thank you for having me. We all know that the Wild Coast is such an important area from a biodiversity point of view, internationally acclaimed area, really beautiful. It attracts tourists from around the world. And in recent years, the sand mining has escalated phenomenally along the Wild Coast. I mean, in 1994, if you look at Google Earth pictures and aerial pictures from 1994, there were only 24 small sand mines. Now, in a stretch of 280 kilometers, you've got in excess of 300 unauthorized mines along the Wild Coast. And that's just in the 1 kilometer zone from the high water mark, 1 kilometer inland. So it's a complete free-for-all. Some of those mines, you're having more than 100 trucks a day going into those mines. And it's been going on for years. And the state, as we allege, has not taken sufficient action and enforced the laws to stop this from happening. So the consequences of sand mining is obviously from an ecological perspective, your dunes get messed up, your wetlands are affected, you have flooding, and communities have complained because trucks go screaming past their houses at all times of the night. So it's affecting tourism, it's affecting the economy of the Wild Coast. And we would like government to take more steps to fulfill their mandate, the constitutional mandate, and to prevent and stop the sand mining from taking place on the Wild Coast.
Now, you're speaking also about this lack of prosecution as well, just a lack of action by authorities too. If this problem is just getting worse over the years with unauthorized mining also taking place in such a pristine and biodiverse area of our country, where is the Department of Environmental Affairs? Where are the other authorities?
All right, so before 2014, the Department of Environmental Affairs were involved with preventing and enforcing the law when it came to sand mining on the Wild Coast. There was the infamous Trans-Sky Environmental Conservation Decree 9 of 1992. That's in fact still applicable to the Wild Coast, and that stated that no one can mine in that 1 kilometer coastal conservation area. Then the National Environmental Management Act came into effect, and various other acts like the Biodiversity Act and so forth. The environmental departments were still responsible for enforcing those acts when it came to sand mining. But in 2014, that mandate was taken away from environmental departments. It was given to the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. And to date, the DMRE do not have the capacity to enforce that legislation. All you're having is an escalation of illegal mines, people doing what they want, ruining the environment, not paying any taxes, and destroying the Wild Coast at an incredible rate.
If that's the path that it's taken as well, Dr. de Villiers, from when it was moved from the Department of Environmental Affairs to the DMRE, why not take it back to the original Department of Environmental Affairs?
Well, that's quite an interesting question, and it's one that, while I was still involved in government, it was one that was raised numerous times at Working Group 4 and various working groups in the national departments, because that makes sense. What was stated by Environmental Affairs is you can't be a referee and play. You can't issue permits for mines and then also do enforcement at the same time. And you have to have sufficient manpower and trained manpower with resources to be able to ensure that there's compliance and enforcement taking place. And DMRE just haven't come to the party on that. So there are no authorized sand mines along the Wild Coast in that coastal conservation area, in that 1 kilometer coastal conservation area. They're all illegal.
And when it comes to illegal mining, we know what a widespread problem it is across the country as well. But if we're looking at that area that is biodiverse too, we know the environmental effect, but the effects on the locals that live in and around those illegal mines as well. Could you just list some of those for us?
Yeah, so as I say, the destruction of their forests, of their dunes, of their wetlands, even of their lands. You know, many of the people on the Wild Coast are still reliant on subsistence agriculture and agritourism and ecotourism, and this is messing up the sustainable use of the Wild Coast and those economic opportunities. And in our application for a structural interdict, the applicants include members of communities along the Wild Coast. So they're members from Sigiri and Umgungundlovu and Sweleni, all people that have raised the concerns numerous times with government to absolutely no avail.
So where to from here? Because clearly not enough of these crimes are being prosecuted, and if not enough of the crimes are being prosecuted, then there isn't enough of a deterrence as well.
Yeah, this is our concern, and as I say, that's why we're going to court with it, because it can't be business as usual. We can't have a situation where huge amounts of money are spent by government on operations like joint operations like Pakisa, and all that happens is that admission of guilt fines get given to truck drivers of 2,500 Rand. I mean, a load of sand costs 2,500 Rand. They pay it with a smile and they carry on. So yeah, there's got to be a strategy that's put in place and implemented, yeah, then hopefully we will. Well, the other thing before I forget is we also believe that there should be some legal sand mines in certain areas along the Wild Coast, and that is something that we've also advocated for. As the Wild Coast Development Forum, which is the main applicant in this, application for the structural interdict, we have stated, that we want to work with government, and there are solutions. We can provide and assist with various solutions. The government aren't coming to the party. We struggled to even get responses from some of the government departments. Since 2022, numerous meetings were requested. Correspondence was sent from Cox Yates, our attorneys, and you get absolutely no response coming through from government, bar from the National Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, which at times responds to the letters. The other departments, you don't even get a response from.
You also mentioned that you're not opposed to having some legal sand mines. Now, we know that sand has become a premium resource globally as well, and if you can make use of it and make some money out of it, then you should. So which legal sand mining operations would you then consider to be okay in the area, and how should that process then be followed? Would that be the same with any other mineral mines?
Yeah, look, it'll have to go through an environmental impact assessment. There are a few mines that are in rivers, like the Mzimvubu River, where sand is extracted from the river, siltation that's taken place. And then, what we're saying is, the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy and Environmental Affairs need to identify some certain areas in the various districts which won't be as environmentally sensitive as what's currently happening. And then they can be controlled, and there can be rehabilitation plans put in place, etc. So that's what we'd like to see, but you can't carry on with what's happening at the moment. It's like more than a sand mine per kilometer. It's just ruining that area entirely from an environmental point of view.
Sounds like it's mushrooming. Dr. De Villiers, thank you so much for your time this evening and your insights. Really appreciate it. That's Dr. Div de Villiers, who's a conservation specialist, just talking to us about what's going on there on the Wild Coast.